to reduce the dependence of space-grown plants on photosynthesis, a process which requires power to generate the needed light. Discover more at nasa.gov/ISS-science.
Here at just about T-minus 5.5 minutes, all systems are currently go for an on-time liftoff. Strong back retraction will begin shortly. And in preparation for retraction, the clamp arms around the second stage will open, and then the strong back will recline away from the Falcon 9. Now, when we say strong back, we mean the transporter erector, which is that large truss structure next to the Falcon 9, which will lean back slowly away from the rocket in preparation for liftoff. Now, the clamp arms are located just below where the Dragon is on the second stage, and they will begin to slowly open here in just a few moments.
For strong back retract.
Dragon is in terminal count and is on internal power.
There's that call out. Dragon is in internal power, and we are getting ready for strong back retraction. You should be able to see those clamp arms open slowly here. They're kind of covered in gas, cold gas from the cryo loading, but they should be
strong
open.
Back lower has started
here shortly. There's the call out for the strong back retraction sequence has started. So you can see those clamp arms opening around the Falcon 9 rocket. Clamp arms are now fully open, and you should see that strong back begin to recline away from the Falcon 9 booster. There you can see it starting to recline.
And there you saw the strong back recline. The range around the launch site also green. If for some reason we are unable to launch this morning, we will have a backup opportunity tomorrow, April 22nd at 3:53 a.m. Eastern. As you heard, that call out for stage 1 liquid oxygen loading has been completed. At T-minus 60 seconds, Falcon 9 in startup. This means the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown. And just inside T-minus 2 seconds, we will light up the Merlin 1D engines for liftoff.
The vehicle continues to be healthy, and the Falcon 9 team is tracking no issues. Currently, the weather is green, and the range is ready to support a T0 at 4:15 a.m. Eastern. We only have a 5% probability of violation due to weather, so everything is looking great. And in these last few minutes, Falcon 9 is performing final health checks on its primary communications, avionics, and propulsion systems in preparation for flight. We'll hear some call-outs.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
There is the Stage 2 LOX loading complete.
At the time of launch today, the International Space Station will be flying some 260 statute miles over in northwest Turkey as Dragon has entered auto idle.
At T-minus 1 minute, Falcon 9 will be in startup.
Gas launch closeout.
For the onboard flight computers, will take control of the countdown. Dragon will also transition to internal power at this time. This is also when the first and second stages will pressurize for launch.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
We are now in startup.
Dragon is in countdown.
and Dragon is in countdown. Range remains go for launch, and we are waiting for that final launch director go.
LD, go for launch.
There is that launch director go for launch. All systems are go for a launch of Falcon 9 and the CRS 32 mission.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 15. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition and lift off. Go Falcon, go Dragon.
And liftoff. NASA's SpaceX 32nd Commercial Resupply Services mission is on its way to the International Space Station, carrying over 3 tons of science and supplies to Expedition 73 as it begins its pitch downrange.
Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Launch Complex 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. During ascent, we tilt or gimbal the engines, guiding the rocket into what we call a gravity turn. During this turn, the vehicle is flying both up and
power and telemetry nominal.
Horizontally away from the launch pad. Everything is looking good. In just a few moments here, you'll hear the call out for max
Falcon
Q.
is supersonic.
Falcon is now faster than the speed of sound. And max Q is the period of maximum aerodynamic pressure that the vehicle will see in ascent.
Max Q.
There is that call out for max Q. And coming up shortly, we will have a few events in quick succession, starting with MECO, or main engine cutoff, followed by stage separation,
MVAC chill.
second engine start 1, and the boost back burn. You heard that call out for MVAC chill as it prepares for second engine startup. Now, main engine cutoff, or MECO, is the point in flight where we shut down the 9 Merlin 1D engines on the first stage. Shortly after that, stage 1 and 2 will separate from each other, with the first stage booster beginning its trip back to Earth. Second engine start 1, or SES1, is when we ignite that single Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage. The boost back burn will then start up on the first stage, which is one of the 3 burns required for the vehicle to make its way back to today's landing zone. This burn assists the vehicle to reorient itself back towards land. And in just under 10 seconds here, we should have main engine cutoff, and you'll see those 9 Merlin 1D engines on the first stage shut down.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition. Stage 1 boost back startup.
Wow, beautiful views from the first stage and second stage camera. You can see the first stage leaving in that view. And as you saw and heard, those events just happened. Main engine cutoff, stage separation, second engine startup 1, and the first stage boost back burn. You can see beautiful views of that first stage boost back burn right now. That boost back burn will continue for about 30 more seconds. Again, this is the burn where the engines will bring the trajectory back towards our landing site at Cape Canaveral, back to landing zone 1, which is just a short hop from where we lifted off just a few minutes ago. And we have just under 10 seconds of that boost back burn of the first stage.
Stage 1 boost back shutdown.
There is the shutdown of that first stage boost back burn. You can see the second stage is still in the middle of its burn. And in about 3 minutes, there will be 2 additional burns on our first stage to prepare for its landing at landing zone 1 at Cape Canaveral. We are just under T plus 4 minutes
Both vehicles are on a nominal trajectory.
Into today's mission. You just heard the call out that both first and second stage are on a nominal trajectory. CRS 32 is SpaceX's 45th launch this year. we are coming up on entry burn of the first stage and then second engine cutoff of the second stage. Around the T plus 6.5 minute mark, you should see on your screen the first stage's entry burn. For that entry burn, we relight 3 of the 9 M1D engines on the first stage, starting with the center E9 engine, followed shortly after by the E1 and E5 engines. And this burn will slow the vehicle down as it passes back into the Earth's atmosphere. We need to slow down to reduce re-entry forces, which help us to recover and reuse the first stage. You can follow along on the screen. To the bottom left and right of your screen, you can see the stage 1 telemetry on the bottom left and the stage 2 telemetry on the bottom right. And again,
both vehicles continue to follow a nominal trajectory.
Both first and second stages continue to be on a good trajectory. And on your screen is the second stage MVAC engine glowing in the middle of its burn, carrying our CRS-32 mission with the Dragon and trunk on top of the second stage right now. We are under a minute to the start of that first stage entry burn. Again, this will be a 3-engine burn of our first stage as it slows itself down, making its way back to landing zone 1. And that burn will be a 3-engine burn with the center E9 engine along with 2 engines on the side. Meanwhile, second stage continues to be looking good with that single Merlin vacuum engine carrying the Dragon capsule.
Both vehicles continue to follow a nominal trajectory
towards the orbit. Just a few seconds away from the start of that first stage entry burn.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
There is that start of the first stage entry burn.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
And there,
Stage 1 FTS has saved.
There is the shutdown of the entry burn and the call out that the flight termination system has saved. Now, this first stage that's supporting today's mission has just performed its entry burn for the 3rd time. Falcon 9 is the world's first orbital class reusable rocket, and this is important because reusability allows SpaceX
both vehicles following a nominal trajectory
to refly the most expensive parts of the rocket, which in turn drives down the cost of access to space. Now, coming up, we'll have the landing burn on the first stage,
Stage
followed
1 transonic.
quickly by the shutdown of our MVAC engine on the second stage. You can see the lights of the Florida coast in that view on your left.
Stage 1 landing burn.
There is the start of our stage 1 landing burn. We're now waiting for Falcon 9 to make that precision landing.
Deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
What a beautiful view of that stage 1 landing. And there you have it. That landing marks SpaceX's 434th recovery of an orbital class rocket, including first stage landings for Falcon 9 and Heavy. We are now looking at stage 2.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance,
which is carrying our CRS-32 mission, and it is in the middle of its burn with the second engine cut off in just a few moments here.
Stage 2 FTS has saved.
And you heard the call out that flight termination system is saved, getting ready for shutdown.
nominal park orbit insertion.
There we got confirmation. We did have second engine cutoff, and we did have confirmation of a good orbit. It looks like we are on track for Dragon separation in just under 30 seconds here. The vehicle is now coasting with Dragon attached, and we are just moments away from spacecraft separation. We're seeing a great view from the second stage as it cools down and prepares to separate Dragon so that it may begin its journey to the International Space Station. Looks like we may be seeing the sun rising and shining on that MVAC.
Dragon separation confirmed.
There is that confirmation of Dragon separation. We've had a great mission so far with an on-time liftoff at 4:15 a.m. Eastern Time, a successful stage separation followed by a successful landing of our first stage at Landing Zone 1 and a good orbital insertion. We are now just waiting for nose cone deployment, which should happen in just a few moments here. So I'll hand it back over to you, Joseph, at JSC.
Thank you very much, Yome, and great to see the NASA SpaceX 32nd commercial resupply mission light up the morning sky off the Florida coastline. And always great to work with you as we again await the nose cone deploy. And as we await those moments where the nose cone will expose those 4 forward bulkhead Dracos, these Draco thrusters will execute a series of maneuvers necessary to raise its orbit and meet up with the International Space Station. So as we continue to monitor that nose cone deploy, right now, immediately after Dragon separates from the Falcon 9, it begins what we call the activation and rendezvous phase of the mission. Now, this is during the phase that Dragon is configured for on-orbit operations and will begin after the separation of Dragon from the Falcon 9, which you just saw, and it'll end with the completion of the final co-elliptic burn that'll occur as Dragon begins its methodical approach to the International Space Station. Our initial orbit today, 190 kilometers by 210 kilometers, with those numbers representing the perigee and apogee of the orbit, the lowest and highest points of the Earth. That means the orbit isn't a perfect circle, but more like a very slight ellipse. And over the next several hours after liftoff, Dragon will execute a series of burns, which will gradually raise its orbit to align more closely with the station. And there are 5 major burns or firings of those Draco thrusters we were talking about on Dragon that will bring the spacecraft close to station before we begin the final approach maneuvers. And we'll continue to monitor that nose cone deploy as it looks like it'll get underway here shortly. Let's take a look inside and transfer to the control rooms. On the left side, you can see the SpaceX mission control teams over in Hawthorne, California, and that oversaw today's launch and will continue to monitor Dragon on its journey to the International Space Station over the next day. The team you see on the right are here with me in mission control in Houston, and the International Space Station flight control team is monitoring the orbiting complex, and over the course of the operations jointly with Hawthorne, the flight controllers there. Those joint operations between the two teams, you will see, will come a little closer to when Dragon is in its final approach phase, and that'll be about 2 hours or so prior to docking. The teams here are awaiting for that nose cone to deploy, and we'll also bring you those live views from inside Dragon, where you'll be able to see it open up and begin its journey onto the International Space Station ahead of docking. Well, speaking of docking, that is slated for tomorrow, Tuesday, April 22nd, with the anticipated time of 8:20 a.m. Eastern Time at 7:20 a.m. Central, and we'll have all the coverage starting here on NASA Plus, starting at 7:45 a.m. Eastern, 5:45 a.m. Central. Thank you for following along as we continue to await the nose cone deploy of NASA's SpaceX 32nd Commercial Resupply Services mission, as it is well on its way to the International Space Station after that on-time liftoff of 4:15 a.m. Eastern Time, carrying over 3 tons of science and supplies to the Expedition 73 crew. And that includes NASA astronaut Anne McClain, who you can see in the front right-hand side, along with Nicole Ayers on the front left, Johnny Kim, who is on that back left-hand side, just over in the background, JAXA astronaut and Expedition Commander, newly minted Commander of Expedition 73, Takuya Onishi, and Roscosmos cosmonauts Kirill Peskov, Sergei Ryzhikov, and Alexei Zubritsky joining up for Expedition 73. And going into the docking phases, and again anticipated for tomorrow morning, Kim and Onishi will be the ones that will be monitoring the Dragon spacecraft as it approaches the International Space Station, and they just arrived on station pretty recently for Johnny Kim just arrived on station nearly 2 weeks ago, back on April 8th. And for Chiyo Kunishi on the right-hand side, he was just ahead of him with Crew 10 as he would arrive to the orbiting laboratory back on March 16th. And we mentioned that Onishi, the newly minted commander of Expedition 73, and that was just a couple of days ago on April 18th, and what has been a pretty busy weekend for overall spaceflight involving the International Space Station. And as docking begins, and once the spacecraft docks to the orbiting laboratory, it'll be Kim and team that'll begin to unpack the 3+ tons of cargo and supplies as they begin to re-up and refuel the International Space Station. As we continue to monitor here and await the nose cone deploy of the NASA SpaceX 32 or CRS 32 Commercial Resupply Services mission, we mentioned some of the key science aboard that spacecraft, and that was earlier in the broadcast, and you can find out more at nasa.gov. But another key piece of science is the Apex 12 experiment, the Advanced Plant Experiments in Space 12. That